Woe to you of earth and sea. Welcome to Satan is My Superhero, a show about art, culture, history, and the devil. I'm your host, Judas Falling.
In this episode, I will be discussing the demonic science fiction novel Complete Darkness, featuring our favourite superhero with its author, Matt Adcock. Matt, welcome to the show.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be here.
Fantastic. Let's kick it off with a little background check. Where were you born? Where did you grow up? Family, kids, job, all that sort of stuff.
Cool. Well, yeah, born in South London, but spent most of my life moving around either north or south of London in the UK. I work comms, so at the moment I'm head of communications for a charity. We work in the Middle East, Palestine, Gaza, Lebanon, all those kind of places where people are in real need. So that's a good thing to do. By night, I review films for newspapers and radio. I also write strange fiction, as you are aware. Yeah, I have two boys. They're in their 20s now, and they're successfully adulting. So far, so good.
Excellent. And the charity work, what does the charity involve?
We work with partners on the ground because we don't believe in kind of sending people over there always like, help tourists. We're not white saviors. We work with local people who can do the best job helping those around them. So we fund a range of projects, everything from disability care, medical stuff. There's education. There's a brilliant scheme that in Iraq, when ISIS destroyed a lot of the kind of people's just homelands and their businesses, we give them small grants to get started again. So you've got like beekeepers now setting up hives and stuff so they can make a living again. And that kind of thing just feels good. It's a good kind of thing to be a part of.
Yeah, no, that's it. It's not the poverty porn that we hear so much about in the West, that these young people, the woke young social justice warriors go over there just to have the selfies with the poor people overseas.
No, I don't believe in that. I think, if you can help someone, get themselves on their feet, it's much better than having to rely on you holding their hand, as it were.
Yeah, no, that's good. And it's great to have a job that's satisfying in that way. You feel like you're doing something.
It does feel good. Yeah, I won't lie, because the world is so messed up. I think it needs all the help it can get. So if I can put something positive back through my limited kind of communication skills, then that's a good motivation.
Yeah, totally. And how long have you been writing reviews for movies and stuff?
20 years now. So
yeah.
That means I've been to cinema for free every week for 20 years until the pandemic hit. So that took a bit of a shift. Now, I get to watch Netflix and stuff, but it's not quite the same. I can't wait for that to open again.
Let's get on to Complete Darkness. Give us the elevator pitch for your novel.
Well, I've always been fascinated by the concept of dark matter. Hey, what if in the near future we were mapping dark matter because we still don't quite know what it is? And it turns out when it's hell and it's bad times for everybody once that it's out of the bag. The president is Satan and he's not very happy that we've mapped his homeworld, so he decides to wipe us out. Now, you need a hero, and my hero is a bit of a loser. He's called Cleric 20 because in the future we have numbers in our names, and he gets marked with this victor marker because his robot sidekick picks up this map of hell by mistake and makes him a target. So in the future, if I marked you with a victor marker, everyone around you would attack you, kill you. They wouldn't know why, they just want to. But if you survived somehow for 24 hours within your system, you would super evolve to fight back. And by luck than chance, Cleric 20 manages to survive, evolves superpowers, becomes the only person potentially who can fight the devil, and they fight.
I've got to say, my favorite idea in the whole book was filled with ideas. Like this is a book of ideas. Like it's dense with so many. I'd call them extrapolations on our current culture and technology is the best way I'd describe it. And the dark matter angle I just thought was so unique and original. Like that idea that these dark matter halos we've mapped in around galaxies, they're actually billions of human souls. And if you want to apply science to that whole supernatural thing, the whole idea that, like all we know about dark matter is it doesn't interact with the rest of the universe, except maybe gravitationally. That's how you would find hell. That's how you'd find these souls in the universe somewhere. Like they're invisible, they're not interacting, but they're there somehow. I just thought that was so unique and original. I really loved that.
I mean, it was a lot of fun. That's the joy of sci-fi, is you can just go out there and you don't have to apply the real laws of physics or science. You can just make it all up. And so, yeah, why not?
And where did that idea come from? Was it just a general idea, or did you think dark matter, there's got to be something dark about that?
I mean, yeah, it kind of evolved over a number of years. it took me such a long time to get a publisher. You know, I've had this manuscript kicking around for a long time, and I used to do a lot of commuting on the train and write longhand. I still have a journal that I keep with me all the time for ideas. That's where the sense of ideas came from, because I met Ian Banks, the great Scottish author.
Oh, I've got to mention Ian Banks because I did notice his influence in your book.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. He's actually the first one I think I reference.
I got to meet him. I was a fanboy. I went and got it to sign my book. But he's such a dude that he spends time talking to everyone. He's not like, here's your book now, fuck off. He's kind of like, so he's really nice. And he was. I mean, bless him, he's died now. But so he said to me, look, Matt, if you want to write a book, just keep a journal, put your best ideas down, because you might only have them for a second, then they'll be gone. There'll be other times when you have no ideas at all, but you have time to write, then go back to your journal, unpack them, and that's how you create a novel. I was like, that might work, and it did.
Yeah, and I was going to say about the Ian Banks, like in the naming of some of your bars and businesses, it's got that Ian Banks flavor to it. I look at that stuff and I go, it looks like that's an easy thing. I just come up with a bar, but to actually come up with those names, it must be quite difficult.
It's a lot of fun, because I just draw references from sometimes not so hidden references from real life events, people, or brands that I like. So, you've got like the Play product, which is a very thinly veiled PlayStation of the future that you can control with your mind or whatever. So, yeah, coming up with naming conventions, I thought Ian Banks did us all a massive service by naming his spaceships really obscure stuff. So just to kind of change the game. So in my second book I'm working on now, I've got people like, as an AI entity called Your Mother Is Looking at Me Funny. That kind of thing.
Now, obviously, the focus of this podcast is on Satan, but I do want to go through some of your sci-fi elements first. You used the harnessing of light echoes, which is a real thing in astronomy. We did that a couple of years ago. For your narrative, you've probably oversold how much we could actually get from a light echo. I really thought that was a great idea. Any other science breakthroughs recently that have gone in your journal for future novels that you're willing to talk about right now?
Well, I mean, the whole hydrogen collider, I thought that's a fascinating concept. And I was watching the news just last week. They're talking about this new fifth particle they might have found. I was like, whoa, hello. This could be the start of a dark matter breakthrough. I hope it's not going to work out like dark matters, but, we'll see. I love all that kind of the cutting edge where we don't quite know yet, but we're about to find out, or it feels like we might find out soon. That's where I like to live, in sort of that, and speculate, rather than sort of draw on. I'm not a trained scientist. I don't have a physicist background, although I've just read a great book, because I review for the British Fantasy Society as well, so my to-be read list is insane. But called ID, and it's about in the future where we have robots, kind of Blade Runner-esque robots running around doing our stuff, but they kind of become a bit sentient. And the writer of that, she has a degree and a master's and a PhD in astrophysics, so she knows what she's talking about. I just make mine up.
Because there was a lot of references. I mean, you're obviously a culture vulture, and it fits with you having been a film reviewer for so long. Like that, to me now, a whole lot of this is falling into place for me, having read your book. And like it's just filled with homages and references. And like you had Hive of Scum and Villainy, like one of my favorite lines ever from Star Wars. But I didn't notice any Star Trek references. Are you painting your partisan flag? Are you Star Wars versus Star Trek? Are you a hater of Trekkies, or I just missed the references?
No, I'm not a hater of Trekkies. I can appreciate it, but I am a true born Sith believer in Star Wars. I'm still waiting for the one where the Sith win, because they deserve to. Anyway, don't get me started on that.
Yeah, well, we have to keep going back in the prequels for that to happen, don't we?
I call my firstborn Luke for a reason, so every night I can say to him, Luke, I am your father.
Yeah.
And he's pretty sick of that now, but he's 24, so what do you expect? I even took my wife when they reissued A New Hope, and she was pregnant with him, like about to drop any minute. We were in the cinema. So he was audibly absorbing Star Wars before he was even born.
He got Star Wars fetally. Talking about the references in it, the one that made me laugh, probably like a proper gut laugh, like I really laughed out loud on the train. I was reading it on the train. How they couldn't program in Asimov's 3 laws into the new AIs because the Asimov family still own the copyright. One day when they do create the Global World Church, are they going to have to come to you to license the trademark for it?
I do hope so. It won't be cheap.
All right, I'm going to put you on the spot here. You had your reference Nostromo 4 as one of the spaceships in it, obviously reference to Alien. So cards on the table, what was the worst Alien movie?
Oh, that's a good question. Because,
and you can't cheat, can't use the Predator versus one. You've got one from the main film.
Okay. My honestly least favourite so far has been the most recent, The Covenant, because I have a special place for all of them in their own way. You know, if you look at the directors they chose, the first four all have really unique and fascinating visionaries behind the camera. So you've got David Fincher doing three. You know, you've got that French, Jacques who did four, yes, they're flawed and they'll never be one and two, but they have fantastic moments, and the spirit of Alien being that kind of eclectic, changed each time. You had one which is a horror house in space. You had two which is an all-out battle and adrenaline rush. You've got three which is like a tense prison drama, with aliens, and four which is a madcap kind of mercenaries in space up against super weirdness. I love that changing dynamic.
Yeah.
In fact, as soon as the cinemas open, I'm already booked to go and see 1 and 2 on the big screen because they're doing a double bill. And I've never seen Alien 1 on a big screen, so I'm looking forward to that a great deal.
I'm glad you said Covenant, because that is definitely my least favourite too.
It's better than something. I saw Anti-Life, Bruce Willis, the other day. That is a poor film, and it's an Alien ripoff. Everyone gets on board the spaceship. Bruce Willis spends most of the time just kind of looking slightly indifferent, drinking out of a hip flask, like he doesn't even really know what's going on, and eventually he gets a flamethrower and fights a bit. But you can see he's just there for the money, and it's terrible. And it breaks my heart because I love Bruce Willis. So initially, if Complete Darkness had managed to come out 10 years ago when I was hoping it would, Brucey would have been the kind of the Cleric 20 character.
He would be Cleric 20 for sure.
Thank God or something instead,
Great, and you got your Mithril reference in there for Tolkien, which has to be book one in any sci-fi fantasy nerd's canon. Obviously, we can't say Complete Darkness, but what is the one book that you think any sci-fi geek out there must read?
I would say it's Asimov's Foundation, because he was doing stuff there that was so epic that has never really been appreciated on the wider scale. And there's lots of talk about a film adaptation or a TV series, but how to do that justice will be a real toughie. But his mind, I just loved it. He did come up with such iconic stuff. It's up there with Dune, and there's a whole canon of things that you really need to read if you're going to delve into the sci-fi classics. But for me, Foundation changed my life when I read it, because I was a kid. I didn't quite understand it all, but I knew it made me feel funny and think differently. And, not in an appropriate way.
All right, let's get on to the theology. What crazy rabbit holes did you end up going down? What research did you do?
My internet search history is dubious, man.
Trust me, that with my show, mine, I should be getting arrested anytime. There'll be a knock on the door any day.
Yeah, there's a watch list out there. But I talked to a whole range of people, from Christian theologians through to Satanists and, the whole range. In fact, at my launch, I had a ticket and a Satanist come and debate hell in a pub, and sold tickets for that, and that was a lot of fun. Got covered in a church newspaper somewhere. I can send you a piece about it. But anyway, so yeah, it was fascinating. Once you start looking into the origins of Lucifer, Satan, kind of like the whole negative spiritual sphere, there's so many facets that get brought in. So the whole Dante stuff, the whole horns, red, hooved, all that kind of stuff. That's all a medieval creation that is not biblical or Quran or like the original texts. And so I went even further back in looking at sort of Babylonian myths, and I mean it's great. I'd love to do like a PhD or something in it if someone would give me funding. So that was the kind of, my wife just looked at me so strange with some of the reading material. She's just like, what even, But it's been a fun journey.
One of the storylines in your book, one of the ideas is that people are building these skyscrapers as high as they can, all the way and practically reaching the upper limits of the atmosphere in these skyscrapers. And that reminded me very much of the Tower of Babel. I think that's a theme in the book overall, is that there's obviously a concern with the hubris of man pushing the envelope of what's possible. Is that something you do have a concern with?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all should be. You only have to look at, if you elect someone like Trump, we're all going to be in trouble as from the fallout. If you take that to its nth degree, I think that's kind of what Complete Darkness shows, is that Earth is already becoming hell. It was all Satan's kind of long game was that, why bother taking everyone to hell if we could just make it happen here? But he gets kind of rumbled halfway through. But in the book, you'll find it's kind of, it's already a paternalistic, patriarchal nightmare going on, where women are like, sex objects, religion is more homogenized. He's kind of done quite well by stealth almost,
I'm going to get to those exact two things you just mentioned, because I really, really respected, this is going to sound weird, but I respected the level of misogyny that was in the book, in the fact, not that I approved, don't get me wrong, but I loved the idea that you've extrapolated the the society we've got and pushed it to some logical conclusion it may come to. And, the women in the book are just all described as hotties, cuties. As you say, they only are sex objects, except for maybe your two arsenic and old
Yeah,
lace-styled assassins.
yeah,
They're the only two do anything. And, you've even got a
true.
woman in there who's sucking a guy's toes while he tells her boring old war stories. I was thinking, like, I don't think everyone would get this. Like, have you had any blowback? People gone, oh, you're just
Yeah,
a misogynist pig. Like, this is terrible.
I have. I
Yeah.
mean, people didn't quite get that, and perhaps I should have, made it clearer that that's. But I wanted people to be offended. You shouldn't be like nice one. This is how women should be. You should be like aghast at it. That was what I was hoping for. When you're up against the devil, what can you do? Because the devil is insidious to that level. That's what I love about him as a bad guy. In that he's super strong and can like do crazy mad things, but he also can just play the long game and slowly corrupt you and society as a whole. And surely that's, if there is a devil, that would be kind of how I see him playing out.
Yeah, definitely. And like things like you have this reality TV show where people actually die. Like, I think we're not that far away from. I mean, it's a common sci-fi trope. We've seen it in Hunger Games, Running Man. Like, this is a thing we'd see, but I think we're not too far away from it happening. Like, there will be one day be a reality show where people get murdered, and that's part of the entertainment.
Yeah, especially I think you'll use it for criminal population control. I was writing stuff that I hope never happens. That's what I was doing. It's kind of cathartic in that way.
Pretty early on, you get the vibe that, oh, this is a horror, as in this is a horror future we're looking at. This is all things that could happen. And like people being driven mad by advertising. Yeah. I mean, we're not too far away from that.
I mean, look at my screen time on my smartphone. It's terrifying. I'm trying to get it up past 10 hours a day, but I'm struggling with that. Again, it's always there, and it's so clever how it sucks you in. I play games on it, and you have to log in at certain times. You have to, all those kind of little facets that you seem harmless, but before you know it become a way of life. Yeah, dependency almost. I can see that happening where there'll be mental health issues with people who, if their smartphone breaks or something, it's like, yeah. And that's where the head chip idea came as well. You won't even need to touch your phone; it will be built into you, bio linked to you.
Yeah, and which in complete darkness, the devil uses to demonically possess people.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was thinking with that too.
I'm not an anti-vaxxer, okay?
Yeah. Well, on that note, what I was going to say about the microchip is that is one of the leading conspiracy theories out there right now. The whole idea of microchips and how we'll be controlled by them. And I was thinking with your book, you've got so many conspiracy ideas through there. I thought, have you thought about promoting it on the conspiracy theory websites? Because I think there's a market out there for it.
Let's go, boys! I'm going to take a short break from the show right now to talk about my sponsors and Patreon. I don't currently have sponsors or Patreon, but if you'd like to support the show, you can do that by buying my novel. It's called Chaos Machine by Judas Fawley. It's available through Amazon. You don't need a Kindle to read it. Almost any digital device will do. Don't forget, Chaos Machine by Judas Fawley. Now, back to the show.
Well, the minute we started on conspiracy theories, the Wi-Fi goes down. There's,
We're being watched. The microchip set it off. We said some words, and the NSA are looking at us real carefully right now.
Oh wait, there's a SWAT team in my garden.
Yeah, I got a black van parked outside right now. What's that about? I did think it was a very interesting idea. You had, like, as I said, you had the global world church. All the world's religions have been diluted down to one faith that everyone has to follow. And you've got like you have an old cathedral, classic old cathedrals have been converted into shrines or temples to technology. And I did think that was interesting. It does concern me sometimes. I look at science the way it's going, and it's starting to become religion-like in its dogma and rhetoric, which, that's a concern. And I thought in your book, you kind of highlighted that a little bit as well.
Yeah, it's definitely a concern, but isn't it part of our human nature to, that sort of differentiates us from animals is that we give ourselves creeds and belief systems that they're not limited to. Going back to what we said about Satan and the evolution of him, in the Middle Ages, what a brilliant way to population control, to have. It's much cheaper and easier to have one priest and everyone's scared of upsetting them, than to have to garrison it with hundreds of armed men. So it's very clever.
And I did think it was interesting too. You released a book in 2019 where the devil was president of the free world. What might have inspired that?
Oh, I mean, I honestly wrote that 10 years ago, but when it started to happen, I was like, oh, come on. So, I'm not a huge Trump fan, but, I just thought it's the logical place now. I mean, I guess you got that Omen and, you got Damien Thorne kind of as the president at some point. But I think it's what he'll go for if he makes a play for the planet Earth at some point, he, she. I mean, I don't even know if the devil is a male. I'd love to ask you that. You must have more knowledge on this sort of thing.
Yes, the devil is, I always refer to him as a he, but he and all the other angels, because he is an angel, remember, they are all genderless. They have no sex. Yeah. When I first started writing this podcast, I tried to word it as, I just tried to not use the pronoun of he or him. I'm obviously repeating a lot of scripture, reading out a lot of other things people have written, and I just couldn't avoid it. So I just went, all right, he's a dude. That's the way people see him. We're done. But technically, he has no gender at all.
Yeah, fascinating stuff. I mean, if he exists, of course.
Oh, yeah. Well, I believe in Satan just as much as I believe in superheroes. Hence the name of the podcast.
Yeah. I think that's valid. But, I bet you get blowback from people who are like, oh, how can you possibly be putting, teenage or superhero out there? So, yeah. But that's great. I love to agitate. I think, why not? I think people need to be, when a satellite in a safety orbit, it will always eventually crash because it will always come down again. You need those little injections to kind of push you out of your safety orbit sometimes. And so I think things like what you're doing is and what I wrote, I think those sort of things.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really important to show the most negative things. I mean, that's what drama, if you want to call it, or entertainment, it's always about us practicing. It's modeling scenarios. That's what a play is. That's what a film is. That's what any book is. It's just modeling a scenario so we can psychologically go through it without actually going through it in case we ever have to go through it.
Yeah, good point. If I wake up, change to a radiator, having seen Saw, I'll know what to do, So.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. What do we got? Oh, yeah. Another one that made me laugh out loud I really liked was the idea of the chrome statue of Keira Knightley leading a bloody and ruthless religious crusade. Is that a statement on the cult of celebrity, or is that just a really funny idea?
A bit of both, maybe. I got to interview Keira for one of her films she did. It was Pirates of the Caribbean. It wasn't the greatest film. And I got to choose between Johnny Depp or Keira Knightley. You can only talk to one of them. And all the women in my office were like, yeah, Johnny Depp, how was he? I was like, oh, are you kidding? I went to see Keira. She's funny. She swears and she laughs and she's just like a really down-to-earth type. And she's gorgeous. So I was a massive fanboy. I had to admit. And so I just wanted to put her in there.
Yeah.
So I just thought, wouldn't it be funny if some fan out there had the tech and the ability to create her into a killer robot that, was unstoppable? It amused me. Or I think that's to any budding authors out there. Write what you'd like to read. Write what amuses you. Because if you read your own stuff back and you're like, just throw it away. I scare myself sometimes when I read back. Like, you think Dark Matters is dark. You should see the journals of stuff I didn't use and the stuff my publisher cut. So that would be interesting. If Netflix ever pick it up for a series or a film, then I'd love to try and squeeze back in some cool hard-rated R stuff that I think we've muted so much of our output at the moment.
Well, I think we'd all like to see Keira Knightley in Chrome leading a bloody revolution. I think that would be... Another thing I noticed, which was one of the little nuances throughout the novel, was your devil. He never once really seems concerned at all that his mortal enemy God is going to come and stop him. He doesn't even seem to consider it at all. Is the idea that even Satan has decided God's abandoned us.
Yeah. Well, I thought that was interesting. And just in a lot of horror films, they're probably the only place where religion has sway and power to actually affect the darkness. But I didn't want to put God in my book because I felt he's so overpowered. He could, if he's omnipotent and all powerful, then he could just click his fingers and everything's back to normal. So that kind of takes it all out of the jeopardy out of it. So if we're struggling on our own and we need a mortal man to become a superhero to protect us, then that gives it more jeopardy and kind of, for me, that was a more interesting tale to tell.
Yeah, I always say Satan is the fly in omnipotence. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't work. We can't have this dualistic system. It's if God's omnipotent, then he doesn't have some enemy that has any way of beating him at all.
Great excuse for evil, isn't it?
Hmm.
Oh, yeah, there's bad people out there doing bad things. It wasn't their fault, really. The devil made them do it. It fights itself. It's humanity's get out clause.
Oh, I also noticed there's a bit of Dungeons and Dragons vibe
Yep.
in some of the language you use. Dungeons and Dragons comes up all the time in my research for this show, so I'm going to have to do an episode on it one day. But is there any Satan in Dungeons and Dragons?
I mean, only as same as there's dragons and there's magic. It's just another facet. It's not demonic. It's a game, and so those who get hung up on the kind of like you play a role playing game, you'll become obsessed, or you'll have an undue dark influence in your life. I mean, that's a mental health problem. So if you're subsequent to that, and there may be a correlation between people who play Dungeons and Dragons and people who have mental health problems. I'm not saying there is, because I'm a big fan myself. People are always looking for excuses, and back in the witch hunt days, it was women with power. Let's burn them because we don't understand them. We don't want them to do that. And nerdy, geeky gamers who huddle together and have spells and fight dragons. That was just a red flag to the right wing conservatives, and so they demonized it because it's easy to do.
I was afraid you were going to say something like that, because I'm going to have to at some point spend a couple of weeks researching Dungeons and Dragons. I know already I'm not going to find much.
Good luck, and I'll be tuning in to see if you do, because I may have missed it.
This shows so many of the topics I go and research. I'm like, oh yeah, that's everyone knows that's satanic, and you get into it, and you're like, oh, it's just not.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating rabbit hole, like you said, to go down.
Especially these days, with evangelicals growing as they are, and the fundamentalists getting up. Satan is, I don't think he's been as popular as he is right now since the Middle Ages, quite frankly. He's really had a resurgence in America, and I think D&D will get another run soon. It'll be we'll have another satanic panic soon, and D&D will definitely be part of it for sure.
Well, I mean, it's coming to PS5 soon, so the first Dungeons and Dragons on PlayStation 5 will get worldwide kind of a focus on it, and that could kick it off.
Yeah, that could be exactly what I need. Get Satan over the line.
Yeah.
Turn him into the pop star I believe he should be.
Yeah, why haven't people done that? I mean, I used to be a bit of a goth back in my teenage days, so Sisters of Mercy and Fields of Nephilim and all those kind of bands. I keep expecting there to be a more overtly, Satan is a pop star. I always thought that was something that was missing.
Anything else you'd like to talk about with the book? Is there anything you'd like to plug about it?
I mean, I'm turning into a comic, so that's a lot of fun. In September, there'll be issue 1, which is the Starlight bounce, of the desert scenes, children of Israel kind of getting massacred, all that kind of stuff. So it's a real feel-good kind of standalone issue. That's been just brilliant to see things taking shape. Characters being made actually come alive to an extent, and that's the sort of reader feedback you want too. I had the reader actually make Cleric 20 and Geeks models. It was taking them ages and send them to me, and that's just the sort of level of engagement you want with your readers. And I'm writing a second book as well, which is not a direct sequel. It's set in the same universe and has a strong female lead. The characters from Cleric 20 and others will cameo in it, but it's not their turn anymore. So some of it's before, some of it's during, and some of it's after. So if you've read Complete Darkness, you'll get a lot out of it. But if you haven't, it'll still stand alone as another weird sci-fi.
Just getting back to your turning the comic, what's the process there? So you've got an artist, obviously, doing the panels, as they call them?
Yeah. So he's kind of a big 2000 AD kind of disciple, and he's had some stuff out before. He really got the book, because you have working with an artist, you don't want someone who you're having to try and micromanage. I want someone who can bring their own vision, and take the characters their own way, but equally not bodge it. Because if you're reading back your own comic book and you don't like it, you're just like, oh, that would be the worst. When he sends me art, I'm all in. I'm like, this is great. So I'm super excited. I'll be going to Fantasy Con, which is a British kind of event in September, and launching it there so people can get on board. There'll be a Kickstarter, so if you want a t-shirt with a mech on it, that kind of thing. It's a joyful little hobby project to have. and we're independently publishing it. So, but who knows? It might get picked up. Plus, it's a great calling card for, if you look at the amount of comic book to TV translations happening, it's just everything is getting made. So if I can get it in front of a few executives, who knows?
That is because the film people need to see stuff. That's why when you pitch your film, you'll often do the storyboards. And what is a comic book if it's not just a bunch of storyboards? To me, the whole comic book to film thing has been very easy because filmmakers, they don't want to read a novel, but you give them a comic book, they're like, I can see this. I know how to film this. I know how to make it.
Yeah. So Dennis Villeneuve, if you're watching after June,
after they fail at June this next time, I think someone needs to do the June comic book. And then once that's sorted out, then we can have the film.
Good work. Yeah. You really think it's going to fail? Because I have some hope that this one might kick ass.
No, I'm just being facetious. I really, my fingers crossed. I hope for the best. I have waited to see Dune on the big screen my whole life. I read it when I was 12. I read it like 5 times in a year. It blew my mind. And then, the David Lynch film came out. It looked so good. It looked like the book. They got the look perfect. There wasn't anything out of place. The screenplay was just terrible.
Yeah. And then the whole Field of June kind of TV series and stuff, it felt a bit second rate. I don't know. It was weird, huh?
It was very slow, and it just wasn't as good. They had more time. They had, instead of trying to pack it all into 3 or 4 hours, they had 6 to 8 hours, and they still didn't manage to do it. We'll see how Amazon go. If they really are going to make 80 episodes of Foundation, I think we might finally get one of these books done properly.
Yeah, that gives me hope that they're taking it that much, giving it that much room. And the people rediscovering Asimov will be great. I love that how when a hit film or something hits, it gives a lease of life back to the original source material. Kind of with the comic book, I'm hoping that people will read that and they'll see, oh, it's an actual book. Well, maybe I'll give that a go. How
about plug your socials? Where can we find the book? Where can we find you online? What do we need to know?
Great.
Give us all the details.
I'm Cleric20 on Twitter, on Facebook, and Instagram. But then, I've been Cleric20 for a long time, and everyone was like, "Why the hell have you done that? Why aren't you Matt Adcock?" And now they read the book and they go, "Oh, I get it now. Okay, so you're role playing your main character. Makes sense." So yeah, search Cleric20, go on Amazon, read Complete Darkness, leave me a 1-star review, do whatever you need to do.
All right, well. Thank you for coming on Satan is My Superhero. And we've been interviewing Matt Adcock.
Great. So good to meet you. Cheers.
All right. You too, dude. Thank you very much.
If you've enjoyed this episode, please rate, review, subscribe. You know the drill. But more importantly, please recommend this show to just one person. I mean, literally one person. Choose that person well.
Well, these days, I'm a bit more mellow, so, I'm a big fan of the Killers, so I might take Hot Fuzz, their debut, that was pretty cool. Taylor Swift, I'll stop now before I get myself,
I was going to say, I can see a path from Carter USM to Killers. I don't know so much with Taylor Swift.